Hello, my fellow sorcerers. I've been playing Season 6, Vessel of Hatred, testing everything, exploring everything, so we can have the best season possible. Now, I know you've probably all seen the patch notes, so let's get this out the way. Yeah, lightning spear, splintering energy has taken, let's call it a little bit of a hit. Now, it's not all doom and gloom though certainly pure lightning spear is way less effective than it used to be, but as I've said, I have been literally playing Season 6 Vessel of Hatred, and most of the changes in these patch notes and everything else is, of course, there, so I've very much been experiencing Sorcerer that you will be experiencing come the release of the season very soon. So I want to go over kind of how we're looking, the ups, the downs, the builds to keep an eye on, and just the general state of the class. So before we go into the actual Season 6 stuff I've been up to, let's look at this patch. Runes are something I'll talk about a little bit later. There's a good few options for us, but yes, unstable currents is kind of whatever. We're here really for Lightning Spear, so only 12 Lightning Spears being able to exist at once. This means that Conjuration Mastery is capped at 30, right? But 12 Lightning Spears, 6 Ice Blades, 3 cast, 3 enchant, 3 Hydras if you have the aspect, and 6 Familiars. Now, that doesn't equal 30, so we can't physically reach the hard cap of Conjuration Mastery anyway, so that's just funny by itself, but in any case, limited to 12 Lightning Spears, and now Splintering Energy can only actually do its effect every 0.2 seconds, means that we are going to be applying the Splintering Energy damage a lot less frequently. Obviously. Now, the thing is, Splintering Energy is still ridiculously powerful for us because it's one of the few ways we have to infinitely scale. There's no cap on the amount of critical strike damage that funnels into it, so we can just pump it as high as possible. So if you're worrying that Lightning Spear is like literally dead, like you're better off playing like Fireball or something, no, not really, though Fireball is going to be especially good for us for a reason I'll get into later. It's still a good aspect, it still hits like a truck, and it's still so good that, yeah, you're still going to have one of our champion builds using Splintering Energy. The difference is that the gap between everything else and pure Lightning Spear is now much smaller. And all of this is certainly not helped by the big knock to Fractured Winterglass, which has had the Conjuration cooldown reduction affix swapped with the All Resist. So now reduction is implicit, which means it can't be GA'd, it can't be masterworked, and All Resist isn't. And that's what it actually looks like here in game then. The Conjuration cooldowns, they're at the implicit, and the all resist not. Now, the actual all resist as an affix is really good, because once you get into Torment 4, true endgame, and you are having to combat a minus 100% to your all resist, yeah, getting this to help you out, especially before you get like Ethereals in your chest slot, is going to work wonders. But of course, not being able to get this 0.3 way up there is inherently limiting on how much we can thunder the Lightning Spear button. Now, I will admit on a personal level, I really didn't enjoy Lightning Spear as a pure build. Actually, just literally one as hard as you can on your keyboard to just fly out Lightning Spears just wasn't it for me. It was fun being that powerful, of course I enjoyed it, it was nice for a season, but I'm not actually that mad at it being brought in line somewhat. And unlike Season 5, we're not going to be clearly the best class with the best build in the game. Unless something that I'm going to talk about later is as strong as it seems to be, and that's quite exciting, but I do think that we will have quite the even-ish build spread, even if the line of power that build spread lays on might not be exactly where we want it to be. if you're looking to be Sorcerer, to be the peak of Diablo, this probably isn't the season for it. Again, unless the thing I'm going to talk about happens. Though even if that doesn't happen, there is still other avenues open to us. On the preview build, Pit 85 to even 100 itself has been cleared, and there's a few little question marks over how, but the power is certainly there. There really isn't any doom and gloom to doom and gloom. But if you're looking to, you know, be a Sorcerer and enjoy a variety of fun builds that are still plenty powerful enough to do literally everything in game well, then you're in for a real treat, and for me, that's what matters. There's a lot of fun, quirky options we're going to be able to get involved with this season. Even something like the Oculus now dealing double damage instead of teleport size is really good, because I did do a teleporty bomby build last season, and now that that's there, we can put the Oculus into it, and you can now construct a build where all you do is just thunder the teleport button, evade, and you will watch everything melt randomly on the screen. So yeah, look out for that. That is really, really fun. Chance for Incinerate to do double damage on Flamescar isn't actually that bad. It's still hard to compete with a staff with Flamethrower aspect on, but you are going to get much closer. If you get like a GA on Incinerate ranks, or the double damage, and you hit them both with your Masterworking, you put Flamethrower on your Amulet, we're actually kind of looking at something there. If not for the fact that burning builds in general are really struggling at endgame. They are peak for leveling and absolutely amazing. In fact, you will see when I release my leveling guide for Sorceress for Season 6 coming up very soon. But endgame-wise, then we get to the few tempering changes, and the one of big note is Lightning Spear double cast for Lightning Spear double damage. This does nothing because this doubles the raw damage of Lightning Spear, not Splintering Energy. And of course, Splintering Energy is where the damage comes from. So yeah, the TLDR for all of this, with the changes we've had with the knocks on it, is that ultimately, while you can still do pure Splintering Energy Lightning Spear, because ultimately it still hits hard enough that it's going to do well, and is doing well from me and the other awesome sorcerers that have also been in this, as we've been bouncing ideas back and forth, it's just not what it used to be. But I think the big thing that these changes to it have done, and I again really like this, is now your best builds that are going to involve Splintering Energy are going to be hybrid builds. Like the build I did last season that used both Fractured Winterglass and Axial Conduit for a Frozen Orb, Chain Lightning, Splintering Energy hybrid that was really, really cool. That now looks a lot better, because you can get 12 Lightning Spears out while doing that. And as long as you have 12 Lightning Spears out, you're at the peak of Splintering Energy anyway, so if you're doing that while also pumping out big Chain Lightning damage, for example, well then you're having a great time. Frozen Orb as well now is even better. It was one of the best ways to play Sorc that wasn't super all in with pure Splintering Energy last season along with Chain Lightning, and now it looks even rosier. In fact, it's going to be one of the first builds that I bring you guys once we get to actual endgame post-season start, because again, it's very easy to get those 12 Lightning Spears out by just spam casting Frozen Orb in a new Frozen Orb pure build, but with Splintering Energy, the hybrids are looking great. And I would say that, honestly, two of the builds to really look out for, more than anything, outside of quirky outliers and some fun things that still need testing, and honestly, there is a lot to look forward to, but in terms of just straightforward simpleness, a pure min-maxed Frozen Orb build with the Splintering Energy aspect, and a pure min-maxed Chain Lightning build, but with the Splintering Energy aspect, are looking really healthy, and I, for one, really like that. I would rather be casting Chain Lightning and getting Splintering Energy ridiculous damage than just pressing Lightning Spear over and over. Same with Frozen Orb. And that's how it's wound out from the testing we've been doing on, you know, literally playing the Vessel of Hatred Season 6 build. And more than anything, which I'm happy about, is this hit to Splintering Energy and Lightning Spear Sorcerer, is it is forcing us to look elsewhere, be creative, and come up with new ways to both use it, but also new builds entirely. Of course, that is limited by us not having any other real way to truly infinitely scale damage. All of our key passives are capped, our legendary nodes are capped, which is a real flaw with Sorcerer at the moment. There needs to be more ways we can push damage outside of random aspects that are allowed to do so for some reason that aren't even like main core builders, but there is certainly room for creativity this season, and that at a minimum excites me. There's going to be a lot of discoveries, I'm sure, and plenty of my own I can't wait to share with you. But to temper the excitement and all that, there is one potential huge issue that we don't know if it's going to get changed or not. And that issue is these two items, Frostburn and Azure Wrath. Yes, everyone that can use gloves, so, you know, everyone can have Frostburn, and everyone that can use swords can have Azure Wrath. So this isn't a uniquely Sorcerer thing, but it is going to particularly affect Sorcerer and indeed the entire game. So, on this Azure Wrath at 750, not Ancestral, the lucky hit cold proc is 1500 damage, right? On the Ancestral version, that can go up to nearly 8000, which is obviously ridiculous. Then you look at Ancestral Frostburn, you've got a 4000 fire damage proc and a 6000 GA cold proc, and suddenly we're like, oh. See, these two in conjunction are going to mean that if you just stack lucky hit and attack speed, proc them as much as possible, support that with all the ways you can pump it, you end up doing obscene amounts of damage that far outdo any kind of normal build doing a normal thing, and it becomes about these items. So there is certainly going to be some concerns there if these numbers that we've been playing with actually make it to the live server, and Blizzard have said that they are looking at them and it might well not, so, you know, watch this space. It's not guaranteed, but it is something to be aware of, and if so, then it's going to be very influential in Sorcerer builds and indeed builds in general. Then to talk a little bit about Familiar, now I've played with it more, it's just fine, right? Like, it adds a few little elements to some other builds. The extra 10% damage you can get from having the right familiar out is quite useful. While leveling, it's really great, but it's not like game-changing. And certainly doing the specific unique with it to make it its own build in the Side bindings isn't too hot, which is a shame to say. I feel like it really needs to let you have more familiars out to really pop that off. The one thing that I will say is one particularly interesting little tech that we have is that if you have the enchantment for familiars on, but you don't have familiars on your skill bar, use unstable currents. Even though you're spawning lightning spears, which via the enchantment should spawn lightning familiars, it only spawns fire familiars, which is like a pseudo firebolt enchantment. Now, it's not perfect, especially against huge groups of enemies, but it's certainly interesting. And indeed, enchantments are still a big bottleneck. Most things still need to take Firebolt enchantment. We still need burning synergy. Fireball getting inbuilt burning means we can use like Frozen Orb enchant, which is really fun. We had that on the PTR and it's still held up, but we still have a lot of the core problems that Sorcerer has. The enchantment system being a bit of wasted potential more than anything. Many of them not strong enough to be consideration, so it's like, while it's boring to always have to use Firebolt, even if we get freed from Firebolts, none of the others are really that ridiculous that we're super excited about putting them in, outside of the like 5 that are worthwhile, so the options there are a little bit, I will say that having permanent Incinerate up with that buff has been really nice, and there's some fun stuff you can do with that, and we still suffer from a lot of the sameness that plagues Sorc. We still really care about putting as many conjurations and therefore conjuration mastery stacks into every build. Enlightenment is our new just best overall key passive, which means that's really great, but it's also going to be just the default choice in nearly every build. We use the same kind of skills on every build apart from the main one. You're always going to see your ice armor, your ice blades, your unstable currents a lot of the time with Orange Herald for attack speed, though that's not as secure this time around. You're going to see a lot of similar offensive aspects, because we just have a few that are just generically the best outside of ones that are unique to builds. The same glyphs are the best, the same boards are the best between builds, which you could argue is an advantage in that Sorc is very templateable, and then you can modify it slightly, and suddenly you've gone from Fireball to your Frozen Orb, and that's easy of a transition, but it does mean there's not a huge amount of full transformations when you swap what skill you're using to deal damage. And that is something I was hoping Vessel would mix up just a little bit more. I really want to actually get a unique focus at some point, and talking of uniques, just to quickly mention it here, Meteor still is suffering bad and needs help. The best Meteor build doesn't even use the unique Meteor Helm because you're giving up Perdition for it. Never mind Shaco, and that's just too much to bear. But as a whole, yeah, there is certainly issues. Like Intelligence giving such little all resist now, even as sorcerers we really have to work to hit the correct caps for the torment tier that you want to play on. But even then, intelligence is now really important because it's really difficult to hit your Paragon nodes. Even on this first board here, right, this is my literal first board, I needed to get 1085 int to actually activate your rare nodes. If we go over here to the second board, well, we are already struggling to actually make them happen. If we find an intelligence on here, we're at 1600. So you can imagine how it grows onto your other boards, which means something like getting a percent intelligence on your amulet is actually going to come in really clutch just to activate Paragon stuff. And also I'm really sad that this dropped on a version where I will lose the character and all progress I've made and it'll be deleted. I don't get to keep any of this alongside getting Andariel's to drop. And if you are wondering, Andariel's alongside Starlight does actually still kinda work. The 120 instead of 200 is a bit more approachable, and if you got like a GA life on hit and hit it with masterworking, yeah, it's not actually the worst with Chain Lightning. You can see the big difference. You run completely out of mana without it, and you're sort of fine with it, but it's not as full spam, and certainly not against a single target, so that's a little bit awkward. And to then kind of work into mercenaries when it comes to Sorcerer, yeah, they are doing their job. So when you get to your reinforcement, there's not a huge amount of options for us that are really like crazy good. The one that you're going to most see probably is Bloodthirst from Vajana for the 10% attack speed, and that's kind of it. For your main mercenary, Rahir is going to come up a lot for the damage increase that this inspiration does, giving you 25 and 15 a lot. Though that said, as a quick note, Aldkin by himself can act as a firebolt enchant. His normal auto attacks become burning over time against a single target, so a boss. So if you're doing like the boss ladder and such, you can use him. But again, freeing up that enchantment slot, as I said, isn't like actually the most useful thing in the world, and then you're missing out on all the perks of Rahir's damage increase to kind of get a different enchant to firebolt, which isn't going to be as valuable as what Rahir does for both your damage and survivability. So Aldkin was really exciting, but he's actually not ridiculous. There's still plenty of experimenting to do with the mercenaries. Something like Suvo giving you 30% more multiplicative damage over time can be quite fun, but for the most part they're not going to be the most defining things. They're just nice and useful to have, which honestly is quite good for the system. So one thing to talk about that actually came up in the patch notes is aspect of elemental constellation. Your damage increased to 50 to 1050 instead of 50 to 70. And while you might have assumed that this was a typo, no, this has been confirmed to be the correct value, and you can see that actually reflected in the version that I was playing. But it's a bit more than that. See, having actually messed around with it, I've got it on my necklace here, like, I've not got insane gear or anything. I wanted to keep my character in this preview, like, approachable. I don't think it really helps if I come out the gates with 300 Paragon points, perfect ancestral masterworked gear, a character that you won't be able to get for, like, a month after the season starts because the grinding required in RNG is insane. I want it to be the kind of power level that you'll reasonably be in a couple weeks or so we can actually get into what's going to matter matter build-wise when it actually matters. In any case, aspect of elemental constellation. So the actual raw damage on this scaling up to 8,600, as we established with these, that is a huge amount of damage. Of course, Splintering Energy increases with your crit strike, but look at the difference. So I've got a really low roll here, 3,600, like that's really bad, and I'm also not built to power this up as much as possible. But as it reads, right, you are supposed to get just that 100% increase per matching element skill that you cast. So if I get myself just Firebolt going in, you'll see the dagger spawn above my head and then do a little bit of damage when it goes off. It did 3,000 there, didn't crit. So if I just spam Firebolt and let the dagger go off, okay, we did 11,000 damage there, right? And, you know, that's not like crazy. It's a nice little extra hit. 47k there on the crit. It's a good chunk. It's actually quite a solid aspect. It's when I was messing around with in the PTR. However, when you combine it with Flameweaver and Firewall and actually have them split through it, oh, suddenly that 40k crit is 140,000. You can see that something's funky going on. It counts all the extra firebolts going through the wall a lot more than it should be doing, which results in a much higher blast than you would normally get. That just casual quick 200 there. Now, I've got really low attack speed here, right? Like, I'm barely powering this up. In an actual endgame build with capped attack speed, with everything adding to it, and all cylinders firing, you've got all your mythic uniques, everything's going on, and then I actually just start blasting it, well, you're gonna see a lot. See, look, there we go, 500,000, and again, I am not built for this. So I do think we are going to see some elemental constellation, and indeed, you are going to see it from me very soon after it goes live, because there are ways to make this even more ridiculous that I can't wait to share, but I am really glad that this is actually quite good, because it's quite a fun aspect. And indeed, it's not just your Firebolt, Firewall, and unique gloves. Any kind of bonus extra cast, like Frozen Orb with Conjurations or Unstable Currents, seems to really be juicing the damage of this way more than it should. So there's going to be a lot of ways to really capitalize on this, and I have a few that I'm very excited to bring you. But again, it does kind of weave into a problem that Sorcerer has, where we have like two aspects, Splintering Energy and Elemental Constellation, that are really carrying, and then all the other baseline passives and Paragon and skills that we have just feel a little bit underwhelming, but thankfully they're all kind of equally underwhelming, so we have a lot of variety and choice, which is inherently still good. Bottom line though, if you are wanting a TLDR here, we are going to have some very powerful builds. We're going to have a lot of variety that all can comfortably exist in Torment 3 and 4, which is where you want to be, do all the endgame content you need to, and we're still very fun. So if you can resist the call of Flavor of the Month thing Spiritborn, and no shame on you if you want to, of course, it's a great class, we'll have plenty of guides on it, but if you stay true to the Sorcerer, you're not going to have a bad time. But there is certainly still flaws with the class, a lot of which have existed since like Season 1, that remain unaddressed in Vessel, but I do think that this will be, at least in my opinion, the second best Sorcerer season after Season 2 Ball Lightning shenanigans, if not in peak power in terms of fun. Because although Splintering Energy Season 5 was ridiculous, again on a personal level, thundering the lightning spear button isn't for me. But make no mistake, I will be here going through every build, testing everything, and guiding you all as best as I can, and one of the best things that Sorcerer can do is instantly, as soon as you hit 60, get online and get into Torment 3, which is quite difficult for a lot of classes, and start comfortably farming really quickly, thanks to a particular build we have that I will be sharing with you very quickly once the season starts, so you can do it too, and I'm really excited for that. Our instant power floor is really high, and that is really useful. And definitively, we are going to land as the second best class of the season, behind likely Spiritborn, just ahead of Rogue, with the outside chance of having one build just smash ahead, as has been happening in recent times. Rune-wise, you are going to have a few options options, but they are going to probably be limited. Crit chance isn't bad early on when you still need just pure stats because your gear isn't up to snuff. Cooldown reduction is there. Your offerings from casting an on-channeled skill, from using a cooldown, from invoking another class's skill are going to be there. You have a few particular funky options, like a way to maybe one-shot bosses that I don't want to reveal just yet in case I can crack it, because that's going to be really fun. And then some neat little combos, like using the Spirit-Born pull-in move. And that one I got pointed in the direction of testing from Lurkin, so shout out to him. And all in all, it's just been really nice getting all of this Sorcerer stuff done in this preview version we've had. Basically, bottom line, if you've been enjoying Sorcerer throughout all of the seasons, you're going to still enjoy Sorcerer. We're still going to be up there. We're going to be better than Barbarian, Druid, and Necromancer at a minimum, so don't you worry about that. We are at worst the third best class going into the season, and unless anything changes, well, that's kind of an alright place to be, except for the peak of Elemental Constellation. I've seen it do silly things, and I've made it do silly things that might skyrocket us to number 1 once again, so yeah, watch this space. For now though, any other questions you want me to answer, Sorcerer-wise, let me know down below, and I will do my best to, but I just kind of wanted to give you a general overview, and a sort of, don't worry too much, yes, the Lightning Spear is severe, but things are still looking fun for those of us that like to Sorcerer. For now then, like if you've enjoyed this, subscribe, hit the bell for more, consider supporting the future of the channel on Patreon down below, and until we meet again, a goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.